Right. All right, welcome to a special episode of the Alaska Sports Talk Podcast. Chatting it up with UAA women's basketball head coach Ryan McCarthy as they get ready to take on the Nanooks of UAF this Saturday. Coach, first off, congratulations, 300 wins at UAA. I don't know if that says a lot more about winning or that you've been here a long time already, or maybe both.
Yeah, yeah, it makes me feel old, number one. Yeah, I didn't, I've not really thought a lot about, the like whatever number or milestone it is. But it is a good time to kind of reflect and think about all the players and, coaches that have been part of the program and support staff and all that kind of stuff. We have a lot of stories over that period of time. So, yeah, it's been special, and I'm really glad that we've been able to enjoy it with this group.
All right, speaking of stories, very first game, head coach back in what, 2012?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you remember it? Well, give me some obviously you probably remember the win or loss. So it was a loss, but give
We
me some
lost.
other
Yeah.
things about that game when you guys who was it? I think it was against Regis. Is that who? No. It was Colorado
Colorado
Mines.
Mines.
That's who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. We lost to them. Yeah, that was brutal because we had taken over a program that had traditionally been really successful. And when the coaching staff left, I don't think everyone knew the whole story on why and why everyone left. And so I think there was like a lot of expectations. I think we were like preseason top 25 that year for no reason
Yeah.
at all.
Number
So
22.
yeah, so we were, we had all these expectations and like I said, a traditionally really good program. And I think that was, obviously I think the fans had a little bit unrealistic expectations because not all the information was out there yet, and we had inherited all these penalties, and we had three players who were intramural players so that we could play 5-on-5 in practice. So it was just kind of a wild year that way. And I think that the returners really wanted to continue to do what they had been doing, and so I think they had high expectations for what they wanted the year to look like as well. And I think that was a program that I thought on paper you're like, we should win these two games. So yeah, we lost, and we were ahead for a lot of it.
Right.
And they came back, and we just kind of ran out of gas. We had, I remember Sasha King was really critical to our team that year, and she got in a little bit of foul trouble, and we didn't really have another option at point guard. And it was good for me because I got to learn a lot of lessons the hard way. But I remember after that game, I texted Dr. Cobb and I promised him that would never happen again. And he kind of shot me a text back of like encouragement. And that meant a lot to me because I had felt like embarrassed and that I was a failure. And I didn't know if we'd ever achieve what they had been achieving before I got here. It really motivated me to get out there and recruit and keep working hard that particular season because that was a real hard pill to swallow on game number one.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, I don't know what the feeling was after the year. I'd be curious to I don't know if you can reflect that far back on your feeling from game one that first year to the end of season. Like, was it kind of like a sense of relief, like that first year in the books after that one wrapped up?
Yeah, I think like I think we had made a lot of growth that year. We got to a point where we were like 500. We'd lost maybe four in a row, and I remember sitting in Simon Fraser's locker room where we kind of hit that low point, and just telling the team that I was proud of them because we lost that game, and I just thought we played really hard. We did all the things that we could do to try to put ourselves in a position to win, and then we ended up going on like a 6 or 7 game heater at the end of the year.
Right.
I want to say we beat Western Washington at home, and that was like crazy. And we went on the road and beat SPU, and they hadn't done that forever. And SPU that year was really, really good. So there was some like really positive areas where we didn't make the national tournament that year, but we left some breadcrumbs behind that were like, hey, this is, while we didn't meet this particular goal, we did do some things the program hadn't done in a while, and we could kind of build off of that as we were moving forward. And we kind of knew in the back of our mind, we've got a really good recruiting class coming in. And so it was like, we just need to hold the fort down for this year. But I was proud of that first year's group. We went through a lot of injuries, and we had a lot of girls that hadn't played college basketball before, and really didn't know, when they signed up to go to UAA. I don't think being on the women's basketball team was in the cards for them. So that was a special year, and we won a shootout game, which was really cool. But yeah, I think they just kind of set the tone for what the rest of the years were going to be like. And we had a really good recruiting class the next year, and kind of the rest is history.
All right, final question, kind of about the past. Are there many games that you can remember, like like your first one? I mean, clearly you can recall that almost, maybe not play for play, but you can recall big moments in the game. Are there any other games obvious when you guys make that deep run in the NCAA tournament, and the whole Final Four and that whole thing going to Indianapolis? But what other ones might stick out?
Probably the one that was like one of the coolest was when we went to Utah and beat them. And Utah was recruiting Ruthie Hebert at the time, and their coaches were from the men's side. So my assistant at the time was Alex Carlson, and we knew each other from high school ball in Oregon, and kind of lifelong friends that way. And that guy was at Southern Oregon, and he didn't recruit either one of us. And I remember um, going to the hotel. They put us on campus at the Marriott there by the football field, and uh, they're walking out because they had catered their meal in the Marriott, and we were walking in holding Jimmy John's preseason. That was our pregame meal with
Right.
Jimmy John. So we're walking in with Jimmy John's, and they just got done serving tri-tip steak and stuff at our Marriott. And we say, "Hey, coach, thanks so much for this opportunity," because they gave us a pretty good little check for that game. And they just kind of head nodded us. And then before the game, the coach came up to me and was like, Ruthie, I think we're going to get her, and it'll be really good for her to see like the difference in level.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, oh, okay. So I didn't think we were going to like, control that game or anything. We jumped out to this huge lead. I really think we were down 12-0,
Right.
before I called the timeout. We ended up winning this game, and at the end of the game, we're up by like 9. We ended up missing a shot, getting an O board, putting it back in, and they needed a stop. The girl on their team gets the ball, and she's so frustrated, she bounces the ball, and it bounces off her foot, and it rolls all the way down the court. And I'm talking to Alex before, during that moment in time, like, hey, should we pull off the press because we're set up in our 2-2-1? And he's like, hey, did he recruit you? And I said, no. Did he recruit you? No. Keep it on. We win the game. The girls go crazy. They storm the court, and he goes to shake my hand ahead of his team. And so normally I just wait till the end of the line. So we kind of meet at half court like a lot of the Division 1 coaches do, and it's like, hey, coach, he's like, I got some advice for you. You need to act like you've been there before. And I looked at him and I was like, we haven't. So it was a really satisfying game. I remember a lot of moments in that game. And
Oh,
that group was just a really tough, gritty group. I really
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, those stories are awesome. Oh, I love that. I love that. All right. Well, let's go back to last week's games, picking up those two big victories over Central Washington and Northwest Nazarene. What did you really like from last week, and what did you see your team really doing well in those previous two games against the Wildcats and the Nighthawks?
Well, against Central, we didn't have Tori again for that game, and I just was so proud of our group's effort. It was so much different than the previous week in Billings, and our focus, and a lot of girls had to play a lot of minutes that game, and so we just did a really good job executing and held a team that is a very, very good 3-point shooting team, and that's literally what they're trying to do is hit a bunch of threes and limit your threes. um I think they finished the game 3 for 9 from
Yeah.
three, if I want to say, and I mean, that in itself is a huge accomplishment on the defensive end. And so I just thought that was one of the games where I felt like our program made another big step forward, just on the defensive execution side. And then obviously when we played Northwest Nazarene, I think we just played with a lot of confidence because we had Tori back. We didn't have to get super creative with lineups. And it was just kind of like, man, we just we're really deep on the inside, and I think that just changes stuff. And Tori's such a good rim protector as well. So we played a very good game. I thought we limited some of their best players. And we ended up doing a good job, especially in the second half, of breaking their press and just getting, layups, out of it. So, yeah, I thought Central was a big step forward defensively. And I thought, Northwest Nazarene was a big step for us offensively.
Getting ready to take on the Nanooks here this weekend. You guys have already played one time this season. Already, what is it? 3 weeks ago, you played UAF already. It was a game we talked about. If you looked at the box score, you would have thought your offense performed maybe really, really well until you got into the weeds. You guys didn't shoot the basketball too well, but it was a good defensive effort. Uh, does anything change this go around? I mean, obviously more than you want to shoot the basketball better.
Yeah, I didn't. I was really upset after that game, particularly at halftime. So I think for us, it's never about whether or not we're going to go out and we want to win by 50 or 20 or two or whatever. It's every time that we take the floor, we want to get better. And so whether we're playing, Montana Billings or whether we're playing, SPU or Fairbanks, whomever, we want to go out there and get better. And so I think sometimes young people, they look at the score and they think, okay, we're up 40, we can take a possession off or two. And a game is no different than practice in my mind, because it's time that you get on the floor. And when March 28th is over, no one has more time on the floor. So it's the team that ends up getting better, throughout the whole year. And that's why certain teams peak in March and certain teams don't. And I think we're kind of seeing that in our league right now. Some of the teams that are, up in the standings are barely getting by some of the teams that they're better than on paper and I don't want to be that team. I don't want to be a team that just looks at the lineup and says, okay, well, we're better than this team and we should win and we're going to take it off. We want to get better every possession, every moment that we're on the floor, so that when all your hay's in the barn at the end of the year, that we were putting hay in on games as well as practices.
Well, I know when you guys look at the records in terms of overall, UAA's never played a more common opponent than UAF. You guys have a lot of victories. I think it's like, I don't know, 77 or 78 all-time wins against UAF. But what makes this a unique rivalry? I mean, there's two universities in this state. You got UAA, UAF. Basketball by far is the biggest team sport in this state. I just feel like when you guys get on the hardwood, regardless of who has dominated the series, it's just one of those moments for the state, and I think it's just a really unique game and an environment for you guys.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy the rivalry between the two schools. On the women's side, we have had a lot of success. I really respect Coach Donovan, and we get along well because we do a lot of like kind of scheduling events together to save budget money that way. But you know, I think that for whatever reason, I really do think just Fairbanks in general hates Anchorage. I think like
You're
so
not wrong.
it's
You're
like,
not wrong.
yeah, the country versus city kind of
Yeah.
vibe. So I do think that I think with the hockey, being able to survive all these cuts, at both institutions, I think has helped in that. I think the hockey people really get after it. And so I think that's kind of one of the things I think is when they say the waters rise, so do the ships. And so I just think it's good. It's good for our state. There's local kids on or local Anchorage kids on Fairbanks's team. And sometimes, we'll get, players from their area as well. And, I think both, when you're local, you want to prove to the other school that, I could play there, or you should have recruited me harder, or whatever it is. So I think it's good. It's what makes college special. I think, and I always enjoy playing those guys because, our attendance usually is a little bit better, and, it's spirited that way. So yeah, I enjoy that.
I want to talk about Elena Mack, and I don't know if she was recruited by UAF or not, but let's kind of flash back to her first year at UAA and to where she is now. I feel like she's a completely different player, obviously. Huge transformation. It feels like in year number one for Elena, she passed up so many open shots. I can just see you on the sideline saying, shoot the ball, shoot the ball. And now there's this progression to her senior year to where she's leading the team in scoring. She's averaging close to three threes a game, potentially could set the season record in terms of 3-point field goals made. What have you seen from Elena from year one to now?
A lot of things. She had probably had to make the biggest jump in the history of the program, from 1A basketball to, a Division two team that legitimately is trying to win a national championship. Like that's what the goal is every year. So that is a huge, huge jump. And especially just from a tactical foot speed, everything. And when we recruited Elena, there were certain coaches that were telling me that certain other players in her class were better than her. And I didn't necessarily see it like that. And I would get an earful from certain coaches at the time. And, oh, you missed, you should have signed this kid. Look at what she's doing and look at what Elena's doing, whatever. And there was always this comparison between a number of players. And I just thought that I thought all those players in that comparison were very similar foot speed, similar athleticism, scoring ability and all that. And what I thought Elena fit inside that crowd. But one thing she did that was far superior was she was a bucket getter. The kid averaged 40. And I don't care if you're playing against scarecrows. There are kids that I know who can't score 40 in a game, right? And she could shoot the ball so well, and not just from the perimeter, and she could score in so many different ways. I just think the biggest thing for Elena was wrapping her head around, okay, you were a really good player in Alaska, and that really doesn't mean anything. What means something is that you have this unique ability to put that thing in the basket, and it doesn't matter where you're from. And what you're going to have to do now is, Elena had some poor habits, when she got here, and it was always a couple slaps on the wrist every week, and then it became, you got to get in the weight room and you got to get yourself in shape and eat right and all that kind of stuff. So that took another year. And then it was like, hey, you got to, like, you're one of our better players now. Now you got to go compete. And I thought this last summer, she played a lot of one-on-one. She completely committed herself. She lived in Anchorage. She did all the things that like all the great players here have done. And that was basically just be like, my summer's going to be totally sucky. It's just going to be around basketball. And it paid off. And I just think so many kids talk about their summer. And especially nowadays, they go to their trainer, they do all these other things. And Elena did it old school. She didn't have a trainer. She didn't have all these other things. She went in, she had a regimen, she ate right, she conditioned, she lifted weights. And now we're seeing like this totally confident new player because she's put all the work in. And not only that, she's a captain. And so that's a player that just completely like gave up so much of her life in the pursuit to be great. And it's unique. And I think that players that experience a lot of success in high school at the lower levels struggle with that so much because when you get to college, everybody was the best player and they really don't care.
Right.
They want the same thing you want. And then it becomes, well, who's willing to give up the most? And Elena Mack has given up more than almost any player I've ever coached.
It's almost like she's grown, not just on the floor, but transformational in terms of a leadership role. I mean, I could be completely wrong here. So quiet coming in as a freshman, sophomore. It just didn't seem like, very reserved. But now, there's this leadership quality that wasn't there before. And somehow that's blossomed. Have you seen that kind of as well?
Yeah, and that's an area our program really focuses in on for, young women in general that will have their degrees. There's places for them in the workforce that they will lead people, they will lead a man someday. And it's like, well, you got to be pretty tough if you're going to do that. And that's why I think our program appears to be demanding and tough and those types of things. At the end of the day, that's what we're preparing them to do. And so, Elena, I think the more you buy in, the more of those character traits you start to take on. You get demanding with your teammates, and you lead by example, and then that example becomes words and encouragement, or you know accountability, those types of things. And I think, with Elena, she's not going to come in and win over the room by a speech that she gives or something like that, but everybody respects her so much because of the work that she puts in. And I don't think anyone's more frank than Elena. She does not mix words around. Like, she will tell you exactly what she's thinking. So
I like it.
yeah. Yeah. It's unique on the women's side. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, before we let you go, all right, give us the scouting report for UAF, the game plan going into Saturday. What do you want to see your team continue to do or maybe build upon going into this weekend?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that. I think UAF sometimes will mix up their defenses between man and zone. They'll press every now and then, but they're they have some pretty good guard play. They have got Taylor Pilot, who's really dynamic, one of the better athletes in our league, I think, and a very good defender. We struggled just keeping her in front last game, and that caused some frustration. Then they have Destiny Reimers from here in Anchorage, who's good, and I think she plays with a chip on her shoulder against us as well, just being a kid from Anchorage. And she's having a really good season as well. So they can score it at all three levels. I think they've been in quite a few close games here recently, and I truly believe that we're their Super Bowl every year. If they beat UAA, that's on the media guide. The next year. So I think that they're definitely not someone that we overlook, but at the same time, our we're not really focused so much on them or what they do. It's kind of cleaning up some of the things that we haven't done good in the last couple of games. And in particular, the areas that we focused on this week were the struggles that we had against them last time we played. And that was keeping people in front and not taking unnecessary chances and sending them to the line, and certain things offensively we felt like we could kind of take advantage of. So, I'm excited for it. I know the girls are too. And I know that we always get Fairbanks' best shot. So yeah, we're pumped about this.
Take it on UAF, 7 o'clock, Alaska Airlines Center. You can get your tickets at GoSeaWolves.com. Right before we let you go, you mentioned Super Bowl. Who you got on Sunday?
I'm going, it's hard. When the last time I liked the Chiefs, I think their quarterback was Joe Montana. So that was a
Oh,
while
okay.
ago.
Yeah.
Um, they're just so Hollywood for me, man. I got to go with the Eagles. So
Okay.
yeah,
All
that's
right.
who I'm rooting for.
Okay. All right. You're
Yeah.
rooting for, but your gut is probably kind of telling you maybe the opposite. All right.
Yeah.
I
I
kind of get
think,
that
I think
feeling.
Ta Taylor Swift
Oh my.
man,
Okay.
I
All
don't
right.
like it, man. I don't like it. But if I had to put money on it, I'd
All
probably
right.
bet on the Chiefs.
Okay. All right. All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, let's get the Saturday game taken care of, and then we can have some fun on Sunday. So, all right.
Amen, brother.
All right. We'll see you Saturday. Enjoy the Super Bowl on Sunday. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.